If you're looking for the best place to stay in touch with the community, go to discord.me/Little Legends Podcast, where we do game night, where we have all of the resources for the show, and where we keep the conversation going after it's done. So make sure you're joining discord.me/Little Legends Podcast. Hey, hello everyone, and welcome back to Legends Podcast, episode number 33. I'm your host, Blevins. Joining me, as always, is Boob. What's up, buddy?
Hey, how's it? Hey, hello. How's it going?
So, okay, I did that. Do you want to know the thought process behind that whole?
I do.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I was thinking about it. Okay, so originally at the beginning, I didn't want to open up the show. And I'm talking, when I say the beginning, I mean like episode 1 when we started. I didn't want to open up the show, hello everyone and welcome, because I've done that for High Noon Podcast for a million episodes. It's just such a cliche broadcast thing. Everyone does that, opens up every broadcast and all that stuff. And I've fallen into that. So I didn't want to do that. So what I wanted to do instead was like, what's kind of the same thing but slightly different? And I did "Hey guys," which is like, the Twitch emote, "Hey guys," But then I was thinking about it. I'm like, "Hey guys," a little didn't want to do it. Not into it. I feel like "Hey guys" could be discriminatory against some people, or exclusionary or non-inclusive of some people. So you know what? I ditched it. The problem is that I ditched it halfway through starting saying it, so I pivoted back to
hello.
So I'll tell this story because there's probably going to be at least one. There's maybe one person listening that used to watch Evan Irwin on the Magic Show back in the day, who has like a really thick, or at least had a really thick like Southern accent of some sort, and he would go, "Hey, hello everybody and welcome to the Magic Show," like that. So I just pivoted. I pivoted not even mid-sentence, mid-word.
All right, let's that is a mid-word pivot if I've ever
That was a mid-word pivot. Yes.
Mid-word pivot.
We're gonna be talking about pivoting a lot in this episode.
It's true. Okay, give me the one, because I didn't know it was coming. I didn't know the hello was coming. Give me your 100% effort right now. Let's start the show. We'll go right into our days in TFT. Go for it.
And you mean like with the "hello everybody"?
Yeah.
And you want me to do it with the twang? Should I start doing the twang?
Yeah, do.
Hey, hello everyone, and welcome to Little Legends Podcast, episode number 33. I am your host, Blevins. Joining me as always is Boob. What's up, buddy?
How's it going? Oh man, that was so good. It's like you're a professional.
Dude. I feel like I need to maybe work on the levels, because I think I may have blown some people's ears out. But you know what? That's okay. I kind of blew my own ears out in the playback, but that's okay. We'll fix it. It'll get there. I need one of those fancy mics that can do that for me. I don't know how to work that magic. If someone knows how to work that magic, let me know. But we do have some awesome topics to talk about today. I'll give you a little preview of that now. Obviously, mobile has come out. We'll be talking a bunch about that. We're now in week 3 of actually having played and had our hands on the set.
Mm-hmm.
Or week 4, I don't know. It's a lot of weeks. We've had some time. We've had some time to play with set 3. There's been some feedback and some other stuff that we're going to be talking about. And also, we talked a little bit about last week, but there's some competitive things that are going to be coming up in the next couple of weeks in April. And we'll be talking about that as well as some other things. But before we get into all of that, of course, we're going to do our housekeeping here. And as you guys know, we are a prediction esports podcast. PREDICTION esports. Check us out on Spotify and iTunes. Search for that, and you will find us. Hit that subscribe button. It really does help. The more support that you throw there, the more it helps us out. So make sure you do that. And if you also want to support us and help us, you can go over to patreon.com/Little Legends Podcast. I know we haven't really pushed it a lot lately, but I know, Boop, we've got some ideas for some stuff going on, so maybe that can help us out there for sure. We'll get you more details when we actually come up with something concrete. We're just spitballing at this point, but certainly does help if you want to go there. And, of course, game nights, guys. Friday nights are game nights over at twitch.tv/GiantSlayerTV. Join the Discord, discord.me/Little Legends Podcast to play. Still getting new people coming in, and we always want more people. Yep. Anyone that, if you're ever intimidated or not sure if you want to play or want to know how to play, just jump in the Discord and ask, because I get that question just about 2-3 times a week. Hey, how do we play in game night? Just show up and I'll get you in.
Well, the other thing I want people to realize is you don't have to be in the lobby to be in the chat, right? So like if we have like 12 people, like hang out with us in the chat. You don't have to wait. It's cool if you want to, watch on Twitch. But I don't remember the last time I actually played in the lobby with you guys at game night.
Neither do we, Boop. Neither do we.
Well, it's not like I'm not there though.
That's
true.
You
know what I mean? I come in support and I roast everyone there for about an hour. And then
that's true. We usually do some sort of dumb improv thing that ends up being hilarious. I mean, at least to us.
yeah, exactly.
I'm sure there's
retail.
Anyway, I'm sure there's at least one other person that thinks it's funny.
That other person is you.
Yeah.
Me.
Well.
Yeah, just hang out. I love it. This is, I think, one of the bigger TFT communities out there at this point, which is awesome. Hashtag humble brag, but it's not about the size that counts, right? It's the quality of the content, and I think the quality of the people in this group are awesome, right? Yeah. Like we haven't had, knock on wood, it's been very supportive. Everyone's helping each other out. Everyone's supporting each other's content. We had a player, Sphinx the Boy, OG Little Legends podcast fan. Yeah. Reach Masters yesterday, and everyone was like congratulating him. And to have that kind of community is awesome. And like you said earlier, we're trying to build it, and we need some ideas on how to continue building this community, because it's been from the ground up, and we're seeing some awesome things take place naturally. And so how do we kind of tap that along and make things even that much more awesome?
Absolutely. And another shout out to Sphinx. He did get second in the Giant Slayer TFT Fight Night Rising event last week, so he's going to be playing again this week. So hoping for another top 3 from him. I mean, I can be as biased as I want. I'm definitely rooting for him, hoping that he takes it home this week. I want him to get a W there. But yeah, Sphinx has been pushing ladder a lot for set 3. So it's not just, filthy casual fun havers like Boop and myself, but also we've got competitive players in there as well, too. It's a good mix of both, and and game night is I mix it up. We do wacky games. We do just fun stuff. We play regular games too, but really just whatever we're feeling, we do. So make sure you guys check that out. Okay. Oh, discord.me/Little Legends Podcast is where to go for all of that and much, much more. Boop, how was your week in TFT?
Good. Just it's the first real week that you get your hands on it. On the main client. It's been good, playing a lot of Star Guardians. We were talking about that before the podcast. I haven't won a game yet in this set, I don't like to say, but I also haven't gotten below 6.
That is good, actually. That's actually really good.
So, we kind of middling in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th area. But it's been good. I like the set. I like the fantasy of it all. The carousels are really cool. I like how it has that airplane noise when you get released from your cage. And so there's a lot of really little things. I like the StarCraft kind of hidden gems in there with the Zealot little legend. But as time has gone on, there does seem to be some things that are stronger than others, and we're going to get really deep into like the philosophical deep dive on innovation versus patching, right? But for now, I'm actually having a good time so far. It's really satisfying to see Syndra ult and kill someone when it's your Syndra. When you're playing against it, it doesn't feel as good,
Yeah.
but it definitely feels like you're popping some pimples with that Syndra parry. I know, right? Like right on the mirror, you even heard it. But yeah,
I'm gonna throw up. Great.
It's been good so far. I've been having a good time. I'm not a challenger level player, right? By any means, so I haven't experienced, I think, what some of the upper echelon has experienced. But so far, at my elo, at my MMR, it's been pretty fun. I've been enjoying it.
As a future challenger player myself. according
Rodan did say that.
It's true. I also I've consumed a lot of streams, and I hear the sentiment of Gangplank being too strong, et cetera, and again, we'll save our deep dive on that for after the break. But in general, my week has been quite good in TFT. Climbed back to gold super quick. I gotta say, the way the new grind works, or the new progression, it's felt good. I don't know the numbers behind it or anything, but like when I get a first place and I'm getting 300 LP out of Iron, it's like, yeah, just let me cruise through that, because like, okay, they have some data points, right? I'm not an Iron player. So like, let's get these players out of Iron. Let's not make the Masters players play. They need to be playing as few games in Iron and Silver and Gold. Honestly, like, all of the top players, like the ladder ecosystem wants them to be playing in lower ranks as little as possible. Everyone wants that, right? Like they want to grind up to the top. They want to get into Challenger and Master as fast as possible. Silver players don't want to have to be playing against Solus, right? Like I don't want to have to play against them in gold and plat.
Yeah, it's a little less so in a game like this, but maybe even now. I remember playing with some like Grandmaster Masters players in Overwatch, and just like dying every time I like moved.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like that wasn't fun.
Yeah.
Right. And so like even in games like this, when you just get stomped, right, by people who are just like better than you, like you're never gonna beat that person. It's not even fair at that point. So I think the grind is definitely a little bit better. Plus, it's nice to gain like 200 LP in a game, right?
It just feels good.
Yeah.
The other, on the flip side, actually, I do. Now that I remember this, back in Hearthstone, myself and a friend of the podcast, Deathblow, who's in the community and has done some casting as well. We used to have like a pro player or streamer like graveyard that we would collect. So every time we would play against like Amaz or Trump or someone on the ladder in Hearthstone, like if we won, we had like a document that we'd be like, oh yep, add another one to the graveyard, we beat them. So like I don't know, I haven't put any additional thought into it because I just remembered that we used to do that right now. But I remember wanting to play against those players back then. Maybe I was just more confident.
You were probably way better, right?
Yeah, I mean
that came across a lot harsher than
No. I know what you mean, and you're probably right. If we're considering like if we're just, I know that the math probably doesn't work out like this, but if we're equating like Legend to Challenger, then yeah I'm better at Hearthstone. I was better at Hearthstone than I am at TFT by that time by like a pretty big margin, actually. If we're well, Diamond,
I was good at that game for like a hot
If we're talking like Diamond would be like rank 5 to 1. I know they're changing it, but like 5 to 1. Then yeah, I would like, because when I was trying, I would get Challenger, or not Challenger. I would get Legend every month if I wanted to, when I would actually play enough to do it. So yeah, I guess I was definitely like a full tier better at that game. So yeah, no, that actually makes sense. I also came from Magic the Gathering, where like there's no MMR system for that. You just are playing against your opponent. It's based on your record in the tournament.
Well,
Um,
and that's how like some tournaments work, like Dream Hacks and
yeah.
Hearthstone would be like that.
Well, tournaments
So
should always be like that, I think.
yeah, that's true.
You don't want
There-
like unless you're giving. Well, I
yeah.
guess you could give buys to,
Well, yeah,
but
based on circuit points or something like that.
right,
But I think in the end, what you're really speaking to is that even though it's cool to beat those people on the off chance that you do, right? Because I remember I used to be really big into fighting games. I was
hmm
pretty damn good at Street
right.
Fighter.
The Shumagorath story.
Yeah. You know, taking a round off of like one of the devs, right?
Yeah,
Like that's cool, but eventually I just like don't want to lose anymore, right?
right,
Like if you were to say, okay, you have 10 games and one of these games you're gonna win against this guy, you know what? I might take it just because like I have the time, maybe.
right.
But but I'd rather win 3 games and lose 7 games. You
Yeah.
know?
Mm.
So well, it's like a cool like little offshoot thing to kind of have like, little black book. um, but I think like you really want to get as even of a lobby as possible,
I think
no
in a
matter
game
what.
like this, you do. Man, I keep think. I'm gonna put a pin in that because I need to think about that more because I actually think there's a deeper conversation to have there, but I haven't put any thought into it, and I wasn't
Mhm.
expecting to bring that up. It just came to me. So I think there's something maybe a little bit. I don't know if it's me or if it's the way the game is set up or if it's ladder versus tournament play and like the. I don't know. So what are your guys' thoughts? If you guys have any thoughts, let us know either in the comments on this show or in the Discord, discord.me/Little Legends podcast. Definitely an interesting conversation to have for sure. Um, so the other thing in terms of my week in not Hearthstone, Jesus, we need to stop talking about that game during the show. In Teamfight Tactics is mobile came out. So
Oh, oh, only a small piece of news.
only a tiny little
A
eensy
smidge.
weensy little
Yep.
smidgen of news.
Yep.
So Boop, have you played on mobile at all yet?
I have.
And
Have you?
I have as well. What did you think?
So, interestingly enough, I thought I would play mobile way more, but for some reason, I'm definitely favoring just sitting down on my computer still.
I mean, I know the
Um,
reasons why.
well, okay. So number one, it looks a little rushed.
It it's not much like you would expect any mobile port from PC. It doesn't look as nice as PC. Like
It doesn't
that's
have the aspect ratio for iPads, right?
yep.
Which is, I
I've
think,
heard that.
actually something I was like really, really looking forward to.
Yep.
Because like when I imagine like the iPad as like a place to play TFT, it's almost perfect. It's like the size of a checkerboard, right? So,
Right.
um, I was a little disappointed in that. Overall, though, it was workable, right? There are
Mm-hmm.
so many other launches that have just gone to absolute garbage because the game didn't work when they launched,
Right.
right? And all that stuff worked out really well. And honestly, I think it was a massive success. Other than
Mm-hmm.
like my personal gripes, I think like the biggest thing that I really liked about it was just how smooth the release seemed to be. You could talk about
Mm-hmm.
art, you could talk about UI, and form factor, and this and this, but that's really being nitpicky because overall, in terms of releases recently, that one felt good.
Yeah. I think
Right.
I think I would say like a 4 out of 5 in terms of like a mobile game for like if I'm
Yeah.
looking like in terms of like yeah, I would say 4 out of 5 and maybe there's someone might take offense to that, but like if I'm thinking like when I'm thinking 5 out of 5, I'm thinking of Supercell almost exclusively. I'm thinking of Clash Royale. I'm thinking of Brawl Stars. I'm
Yeah.
thinking of all of their games essentially. Although Heyday seems a little scuffed compared to the other ones for some reason.
Yeah. I remember at Brawl Stars peak, like literally everyone was playing it for like those 2.5 weeks.
Yeah,
And never had a performance issue at all. So
it like
I,
those games are the pinnacle of mobile games to me. Even like uh PUBG Mobile or Call of Duty Mobile or any of those like that are made by big. Well, PUBG Mobile is not really made by a big studio, but Call of Duty Mobile is Activision, and like all the NetEase games, like those seem scuffed compared to Supercell. Supercell 5 out of 5 to me, and I think TFT mobile launch compared to that as like the gold standard was like a 4. I think that's a fair assessment based on my experience. The game works, which is like you said is good. There's some like UI or whatever optimizations. I'm not really I don't really care that much about that. I mean, I do in the grand scheme, but I don't care about that much for the launch. It works, which is good. But even, and I've heard the sentiment that you said a lot actually from people. It's like, yeah, I was super excited for mobile, but like the carousel just doesn't work as well. Like if I want to actually play, like the thing I've heard the most is, and that I felt personally is, I like TFT mobile, no complaints. I don't want to play ranked on it. I don't want to play ranked on it. I only play. I'll play normal all day while I'm in my bed or on the John, but I don't want to play ranked on mobile because of XYZ. And I kind of feel the same way.
You do?
A little bit.
Just based on the finickiness of the carousel.
I think part of it is the carousel. Part of it is definitely me not being used to it, and like in the same sense that like I don't necessarily want to jump into rank, although I do want to jump into ranked for set 3 because I played on PBE or whatever. But like for no, not for set 2 either. Regardless, like I don't want to necessarily jump into a new set when I'm or a ranked season for a game that I'm not like super ready for, and like even though I know what comps to build and whatnot, like there's still like a little bit like I need to get used to like hitting the buttons, and like re-rolling is in a weird spot. And not a weird spot, it's in a spot that's not used to me hitting, the button on my keyboard, right? There's some, so I think part of it is definitely that the carousel does not feel great. Not to me.
Definitely the weakest part of the game right now.
Yeah, is the mobile carousel. But yeah, I mean, I think it's good. I would be interested to see if they've said that they don't want to change core aspects of gameplay because of mobile. They would essentially make mobile work as good. Like they can, like things like game time, like reducing game time. That's something that they would, are actively looking to do and potentially
they have to. In my opinion, like I think if they're going to be successful in mobile, because that was like the other thing, right? Was it was just a little too long, right? It just felt like a little. It started feeling like the end of the game felt like a chore, more so than something I was excited for. That could be a personal problem, but I think that's a sentiment that other people.
It definitely. I mean, that's another thing that like Supercell just completely dominates at. It's like I think in a way, Clash Royale has ruined, or at the very least drastically warped, my view of games in general, because you get a full game competitive skill testing experience in at maximum 3 minutes. Like maximum is 3 minutes. I think, I mean, I could go on a whole diatribe about how I think Clash Royale might be the best game of the best game of this century, like for a lot of reasons, and I think it's overlooked in a lot of ways. But regardless, I think TFT mobile was good, and I won't go too much more into my personal experience with it because I probably played like 5 or 6 games on it. But what I did want to bring up was the fact that my girlfriend started playing. And for reference, she's never played TFT, never played any sort of auto battler, auto chess, has basically no idea what League of Legends is, so no preconceived, like literally no biases whatsoever for or against the game. The only thing that she's played that's close is Ascension, the tabletop card game, which is a deck builder game. So loosely related, if anything. And the cool thing is that she's still playing. Like she played the tutorial the day it came out, and I took a very hands-off approach in terms of like guiding her on purpose because I didn't want to commit to that. B one of the most annoying things is when you're just starting.
We're literally gonna be doing like a coaching series a little later.
I just didn't want to. I didn't want to commit to that at that time.
Well, I'm glad I know where my place is.
No, this is Boop. Don't worry, you're different. You're different. Don't worry. But what was interesting? Oh, the other thing is, one of the most annoying things is when you're just picking up a game and someone who knows the game inside and out and like the back of their hand is like constantly like giving you like little micro optimizations and tips while you're like just learning the game. That's one of the most annoying things. I have been very cognizant over the years to not do that. So I just went hands off. I'm going to just play and I just want to see where you end up. And she's kind of ended up in some interesting spots. And I don't mean this as a slight. I mean this as like, I think a lot of there's a lot of things that we take for granted as players, like since
I
they've been playing for a long time.
I think, like, in summary, the new player experience, I think, was very evident to you,
Very.
in a very raw sense, because you're never gonna have that experience with this game, right? Like,
Yeah.
you did
I
a
never-
while ago.
Not even, because
right?
I had played
But-
auto chess and
Exactly,
Underlord,
and
so like literally
Underlords.
never had this experience.
Yeah, and so when someone is brand new genre, she's probably the majority of people who interacted on mobile. I'd love to hear
Right.
the stats on like account creation.
Right.
After I got it, like how many new accounts were created,
Mhm.
how many are still active, that kind of stuff. How
Yeah.
many created it, how many have then transitioned over playing regular League, right?
Mhm.
How much time do they spend in the app, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm super intrigued by. I will never get those answers. But I think what we have to understand as players who interact with this game so long is we're probably in the minority,
Mhm.
right? In terms of getting all of this, getting like all of that information, right?
Right.
So when we see people like your girlfriend going through this, I think we have to take that information and almost weigh it even more.
Yeah.
Right? Because we were talking to Mort about this when
Yeah.
he was on the
Mhm.
podcast, where it was like, the first thing that a lot of people do when they hit League of Legends in the tutorials, press W or
Yeah.
or WASD because they think that's how they move,
Mhm.
right? And at least in that game, it'll tell you, no, you need a click. In this game, it's very different. And I know that they're working on it, and I know that they're trying to make that beginner player experience a little bit easier, which is
Mhm.
definitely something they have to do. But I think in the end, there's a really big change in the player experience when you start like losing a game, right?
Mhm.
You'll the transition from like mid to late games not really explained.
Right.
Someone in our Discord actually said this. It was like, well, that it really seems like you can start off 0-11 and then finish the game 12-0.
Yep.
Right?
Mhm.
And is that a good experience? Is that right? There's nothing
Right.
for those new players to kind of see something and say this is optimization,
Mhm.
right? Unless they go in and do a little bit of research themselves. And I think that's like where I think one of the bigger disconnects is
Mhm.
if you don't find success quick enough, they just won't play.
Right. Yeah, and I think to even drill a little bit deeper into that too is like one thing that's not in the tutorial really at all. Items are in the tutorial, and they tell you, oh, put 2 items on to create put 2 item components on to create an item and put it on a unit. It's like, okay, great, I can do that. Just like having watched her play, I don't know, a handful of games, and like coming back, it's like, oh, she's just putting all of her items on Caitlyn because that's the unit that they told you to put items on in the tutorial. Like, it's things like that like I don't even think about, and it's like I'm looking over, there's no synergies. I'm like, oh, you're just buying the same units that they told you to buy in the tutorial because that's what you're used to. And like that's the type of thing that it's like there's not, I mean, yes, the synergies are there, but I'm like, oh, you realize you have no synergy. She's like, oh, okay, that's probably why I'm not winning. I'm like, there's not really like it's things like that like you pick up if you're a strategy game player and you've been playing, you've played 10 years of Magic or another similar game, and you get that. It's like putting the pieces together like that. But for a new player who maybe has never played it before, it's like there's not any of that sort of like guiding. And like even if it was just take the rebels every game. I mean, in this meta, that might actually be better than trying yourself. But like the little things like highlighting a unit that is a synergy, or highlighting a unit, or like a little tooltip that's like, hey, if you put in Malphite here, you'll have 3 rebel bonus, and you can put them next to each other, like things that would be useless for us, right? That we could disable, like we always do with those tutorials.
People need to realize too, because like a lot of times mobile gamers don't play on other games, right? That would they even know how to click on a unit and find out what the ultimate is, right? What do these stats numbers even mean, right? So what is ability power?
Well,
and so like because the items go along with that. So I think like I think it's obvious that there still needs to be clarity in terms of that new player experience, right? I think right now TFT is being held by a lot of the initial influx of its original release. Right. A lot of the people who I know started playing TFT still play. It's actually pretty crazy. Of course, there are some people who stopped playing or don't interact with it as much.
Yeah, we call those losers.
Yeah, people still seem to be like really enjoying it and like looking forward to the sets, right? And that's really great. It's just, where do we go from here, right? I think one of the biggest challenges when it comes to TFT is everything has been reactionary, right?
Yes.
They saw that this thing was gonna be a thing, and now they're still catching up, whether it be in competitive, whether it be in mobile, whether it be in a multitude of other design / feature / UI ways, right? I just hope that, especially once galaxies get into the game and it gets even more complicated, right? That something is offered to these newer players to set them up for success a little bit better. Because I think one of the big things my husband had a hard time with was, why, if I get 6 of this synergy, am I still losing? Right? Because the game is telling me that if I get 6 of these things, I get this awesome power up, but I'm still losing to this guy who only has 2 of these things, or 3 of these things. Like, the why isn't there, right? I think they're seeing what is happening, but they don't quite understand why it's happening, and that's the area that really needs to start getting filled up as time goes on, because we need to retain these users now that we have them, now that these things are on the phone. And the more times because I remember when set 2 came out, my husband was just like, I don't really want to learn all these new units. And, he just didn't find success. I heard that a lot. Because, he was a Omni Yordle player, right? Remember?
Right. Oh, yeah.
And so, like, he goes into this next set and is like, what do I do? And so, just didn't feel like learning it all over again. But the thematic for space was much better. So now he's coming in once more. But in the end, like, what I think we're really speaking of is the new player experience needs to be fleshed out. It's there. They have a really great video explaining all the classes and origins and the synergies, but it's so much information at once, and to retain all of that, you need to play, and there's nothing within the game and within the client to other than you can level up to get more units, right? When you get to Crux.
But like, but again, it's like you can spend gold to level up. Okay, well, what does that do? Well, leveling up puts more units in. It's like, okay, well, I mean, there's so many nozzles that I mean, and those are the things that we like, right? Like, we like the complexity, we like making decisions and having our decisions be impactful and all that stuff. We're the like you said, we're the minority, and we're the dedicated, we're the early adopters and whatnot. And I think it's very evident that and I would argue for good, right? That the game has been tailored and designed and balanced around the early adopters and competitive players, and maybe not even competitive players, but hardcore players. So, and TFT, I mean, the whole premise of it was, oh, hey, auto chess / auto battler genre is a cool thing. I think we can make a good one. Right. Well, it was super quick, and also like, let's just give the auto chess players like a Riot spin on it. Okay, so it's like your initial player base is all people who either are
already played your game.
already played your game effectively, or played a game that is very similar to it, or were like, and eventually like League people came in and are like, oh, I want to play this and learn it, but they're still like gamers, core gamers, right? And like everything up to now has been for, like you said, that initial wave people who are all very dedicated, and there's been very little, and a lot of the things about the game are specifically not tailored towards new players. Like there's still no way to like know if you don't have a sword and a chain vest, how do you know what a guardian angel even is, right? Without going to a website, you know?
Yeah, and to expect your players to do that, I think at the early onset, like maybe in beta is fine, but as we kind of move into official release, right, we're on mobile, they definitely need to kind of season that experience a lot more, because we're gonna stay, right? Like the two of us are always gonna play, right? They don't really need to honestly
retain us,
right? Yeah. Like how Hearthstone lost a lot of people was they ignored us for too long. Right. And then they couldn't decide whether new player, blah blah blah, right? A lot of issues there. I'm sure that's on another podcast somewhere else. But here in TFT, I think another issue is also when you play Battle Royale, and I think this is why Fortnite got so popular and why the VR format got so popular. It's very obvious, right? You drop in, you're trying to be the last one alive, right?
Shoot the person.
And there's guns around. You know, Fortnite has buildings, so there's a little bit of complexity there, but the core game is something very familiar. Right? This is a game that's Battle Royale, but has so many small details and nuance to it as to why rolling to 30 is better than rolling to 20 here in this particular situation, or why a blender comp in this lobby is better, right? All games have that. For example, best places to camp or best places to shoot in any other FPS or Battle Royale. But in this game, it's way less obvious, I think, to see the success and then also understand why the success is happening, as well as why you're losing. Because I was playing with someone earlier today and they had won the first 9 games in a row and then got 8th place and couldn't figure out why. And even when I was typing, it didn't get into their head as to why my level 2 units lost to this 1 cost 4-star unit, right? Like it just doesn't make sense to them on a first read. And while we're going to lose some players because of that, no matter what, right? I'm afraid that if we keep giving these people like, all right, just figure it out, right? Like we had to do as early adopters, then there aren't going to be a lot of people who kind of cross that bridge between that casual into competitive player that we need in order to sustain something competitive that doesn't even exist yet. Right. So that's, I think, the biggest question for me post mobile release. It's less so the actual game, because I think the release of the game went great. Like you said, 4 out of 5, right? But in terms of what's next, that's something I hope they focus on along with the competitive aspect.
Yeah. I could probably talk another 2 hours on just the mobile itself. So we'll save that for another show for sure. We did, we don't need to go super deep into these, but we did get some PBE changes that actually went up today in the Star Guardian Urgot update for regular League. Can you believe that they did that, by the way?
I'm so glad they did, and it's a cosplay. And he's got like a badge and everything, and I just feel like he's got some BO, probably.
Almost certainly. But they did also do a bit of changing in TFT. So Dark Star is actually getting reworked. It's now when a Dark Star champion dies, all other Dark Star champions gain attack damage and spell power. And it's still a 3 and 6, and they scale up. The numbers aren't super important because they'll probably get changed anyway, and we'll go over it when it becomes official. But they basically made Dark Star a different light more directly than it already was.
Which is fine, I think.
Yeah, I think it's good. I think, again, the power level of it will depend on the will obviously depend on the numbers, but this seems like it's a buff overall. And also, like, it was just really confusing before because it was like, so there needs to be an adjacent unit and it puts stacks on another one, but not everyone. And then when that one dies, it also gives stacks, but it doesn't give the previous stacks or something. I didn't. I still to this day don't know exactly how it works, and I didn't really care because I never really played it that much. And also it's getting changed. So this is good. I think this will probably. I mean, we've already seen some really good Shaco builds. I think this makes Jin a lot better. I mean, it makes all the Dark Stars better, right? So very interested in that. And then the other change is Mana Reaver. It's now just a 2-cost or a 2-champ synergy, and Mana Reaver attacks increase the cost of the of their target's next spell cast by 40%. So kind of like poison when they attack. And then the 4 champ bonus was actually removed, so it's just 2, and that's it.
I don't know if I ever saw a 4-person Mana Reaver squad ever.
I didn't ever see it. I did see people try to do it, like on streams but it was never for a strategic reason. It was like, oh, I wonder if 4 Mana Reaver works. Oh, no, it doesn't.
Yeah, well, we're going to talk about balance here in just a second, I'm sure. But overall, I'm happy with how it went, right? It's so easy to talk about the negatives, right? And we did touch on some of the positives, but of all that stuff in terms of like new player onboarding and retention and all this stuff, from what I know of Morton, from what I see, he's very active in making sure that these things are at least talked about and discussed and on the table, right?
Yeah.
But I think what they're going to find now is that timing is everything right now, right? They're going to have, it's kind of like a Sophie's choice sometimes when it comes to this. Are you
absolutely
going to focus in on new player, onboarding instead of competitive? Because new players are going to bring more money, right? So where are you going to put your resources, right? And I think that's like the hard part. Mort, I think, really wants all of us to kind of understand, right?
Yeah.
It's okay to be frustrated. We hear you, and they're working on it. But then it's also a double-edged sword, right? Because the more we hear we're working on it and then see nothing, the less trust we have. So it's a really shitty situation to be in as an in-your-face dev like Mort is. I'm so glad we have him, but that's kind of me saying, I know they know this. I'm not saying anything that I think they don't know or they are not aware of. They're all very, very smart. I'm just trying to reiterate the fact that we as a community might need to be a little bit selfless on some of these balance issues, because I think this new player onboarding is like really, really important. So there might be some struggles in the future because of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think as sad as it is, the Sophie's Choice analogy is probably pretty apt, because if they say, okay, we're going to be spending, like, even if they just put it as part of the patch notes, right? It's like, oh, we did a lot of optimizations to the new player experience. People are going to be like, oh, so does that mean that you're not actually going to fix the game? Like, what about us? Like, GP is one-shotting entire teams. Like, why are you focusing on this? Or like, why are you focusing on mobile? Do you guys just want money? Blah, 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 blah. And it's like, dude, do you not realize that
Let's save it. Let's save the vent after the break.
We'll save it for after the break. But was there another thing I wanted to talk about before the break? Oh, the one last thing before the break that we'll talk about is we got TFT merch now. Official TFT branded merch in the Riot store. Did you take a look at it at all, Boop?
I did not.
Okay,
not
so
yet, because I don't have any money.
So I'll give you the rundown here. There's basically three. There's more than 3 items, but there's 3 categories of item. There's mugs, there's phone cases, and there's pins. And they're pretty much all, actually they are all Little Legend themed. So there's 2 different pin packs, each with 3 different Little Legends. They're all the set 1 Little Legends. So the Pengu, the Rune Spirit, and all of our other favorite friends. No River Sprite though. There's the mugs, which I believe have all of the little legends from the first two sets at least. I don't know that they have the Galaxies ones. And then there's a Fury Horn phone case for iPhone and some sort of Samsung phone. I think people are very excited about this, and I'm happy for them. But if there's one thing I don't need more of, it's mugs. I have 10,000 of them. I don't have either of those phones, so that's not for me either. And I despise pins. I think they're dumb. And but with that being said, people love mugs. It's a very easy thing. It's a good gift too, or I mean, it's at least a common gift. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a good gift. It's a common gift to be given. People like phone. People with those phones are probably going to get that phone case, and for whatever reason, nerds like pins. So I don't fault them for that. Just I'm not even a little bit excited about any of this.
All right. You don't like pins. We
now, I only have 20 more minutes of anti-pin stuff, so just let me get through it.
This isn't an anti-pin. This is a safe space for all pin lovers out there. Don't worry, just not in Blevins' head.
Yeah, this is a pin neutral podcast, but I'm certainly I'm personally pin negative, and I'm open about it, and I embrace it.
Anyway.
So yeah, check that out. Go to the merch store for Riot Games, and if you want any of that stuff, get it.
Cool. Thanks.
Or if you don't, then don't. Cool. Okay, that's gonna be it for the first half of the show. We will be right back where we're gonna be deep diving in on some of the hot topics in the community. Stick around. We'll be right back. Hey everyone, do me a favor, go to twitter.com/LIL Legends Pod, hit that follow button. Every single follower counts. Also, go to YouTube, search for Little Legends Podcast, hit the subscribe button. I'm telling you, it really does help. Every single one does help the show and helps us get more content out to you. So again, twitter.com/LIL Legends Pod and search for Little Legends Podcast on YouTube. Welcome back, everyone. From the break, we are back and are going to be talking about a pretty hot topic right now, and that is the meta of Set 3 specifically, but more broadly, how the meta functions, how players adapt or don't adapt to that, what happens, and what I don't want to say responsibility, but what the I don't know, how would you put it? What the
onus?
The onus, where the onus of change comes in.
Yes, I think that's a good way of explaining it, because this is a very philosophical discussion.
Yes.
And there are a lot of varying opinions about this, and I don't think either one has a right answer. So just prefacing this conversation with that is these do tend to get a little bit heated and personal based off of just like beliefs. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, so basically, I mean, this can be broken down, and when I say this, I'm pretty sure that there's no personal angst here. So even if it sounds like that, don't look any deeper than that. But this is the Mort Dog versus Cloud9's Jay Shrita discussion that is pretty much omnipresent in the community at all times, because Jay Shrita is, as you know, a very competitive player for Cloud9, and is always looking at the meta and what's being played, and he's obviously playing at a top level and is very vocal, and a lot of times specifically to Mort about what they think is the scenario in ranked and in on the ladder, and that's a lot of times public on Twitter. So the newest sort of legacy, or the newest development here is in regards to Rebels and Gangplank, I think specifically. So the tweet is something. So Mort essentially started by sharing a Twitch stream from Kiting is Hard. They hit rank 1 and are doing it with a variety of different builds. Jay Shrita, of course, goes and pulls the logs of their games, and they see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 out of 4, 6, 8. Yeah, 8 out of 10 games in whatever snapshot that they took are Rebels comps.
Okay, so basically, I think what we're going to be discussing here, like you
Yes.
said, is the onus. I think it's very important to read this back and forth because I have opinions on how both people kind of go at it in this one. So do you want to be Mort or do you want to be Jay Shrita?
I can be more sure.
Okay, I'll be Jay Shrita then. I don't have a good Portuguese / Brazilian accent, so it's just going to be me reading his words.
Okay. Okay, where are we starting here?
I don't normally promote.
Okay, don't normally promote. Don't normally promote specific streamers, and then he posts the stream. Jashrita responds with sure, and then
Sure.
posts that.
Okay, and then he goes, and before someone says something, this isn't a flame or anything. It's only to show you need to play this comp. If you want to climb fast, you play another comp to climb for a top 4. It's not his fault, and I truly think he's a good player and he has merit.
Yes.
We'll read a couple more. I think this next one, these next 2 are really important.
Yes. So yes, Mort. I don't trying to see which one of these comes first. Mort says eventually the top 1% of players are willing. I don't know. Is that the first one? No, that's the second.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Okay. Yeah. Mort says eventually the top 1% of players willing to experiment figure out good options. Slowly, people discover that it can work. Slowly, the meta shifts. The meta shifts quicker, and then the pattern repeats. I'm not debating that Rebel GP is strong. It's getting nerfs, but try to be that 1% that finds the counter.
And so Jay Shrita then responds with, every patch, I know people are going to copy and paste comps, but the problem in this patch isn't a specific comp. I think that kind of, I don't need to read the rest as he goes into specifics, but basically the argument now from Jay Shrita is that certain comps aren't strong at certain characters.
Mm-hmm. Yes. In this case, Gangplank. Mort then, I don't know if this is directly in response, but also says, look, I feel you've played the game enough that you'd see this by now. Here's the pattern. Someone finds a strong build. Everyone flocks to that strong build. Its play rate goes up 100 times. That's probably pretty close to true, honestly. not hyperbole. Because of that, the build gets optimized, and then 99% of the players, 99% of players only play that, and then nothing changes.
And then he goes on to say GP 1 base damage is 650. Enemy MR is 20. So basically, he's saying that Jay Shrita is being hyperbolic of the, Gangplank one-shotting the comps.
Right.
And then Mort comes back in with his... and then he also says Nico is a problem. Early game gold isn't a comp. Nico isn't a comp. GP isn't a comp. I know every meta is going to have an S tier comp, and people are going to learn how to play and how to counter. But this isn't the case here. Mm-hmm. GP is broken. Nico boost T5 unbalanced champs, top 5 unbalanced champs early, unbalanced. These are the problems. So basically, I think what is happening here is, I don't think Jay Shrita feels like he's being heard as what he believes is the actual problem. And Mort, I think, is taking a little bit too much of a like hands on hips dad approach to this, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. Because even just this initial tweet, right? I don't normally promote specific streamers, but this guy, it's almost like he is asking for it, at this point. Like, this guy's right. See? Right? A little bit of confirmation bias. But then when presented with some other proof like Jay Shrita has, even though the comps are pretty similar, I think both of them have things to say. So earlier on, you definitely had some opinions on how this went and whose side you're on. But I'm definitely under the impression that I don't think Mort necessarily handled this the best he could have, because I do think it's kind of condescending, and I think that does come across frustratingly to Jay Shrita, and why he might be so passionate about this. It just sucks to feel like you're not being heard, even though you're screaming and maybe you need to be using your inside voice, right? So,
Yeah.
so I don't know, man. What do you say?
So I think I don't want to speak specifically to this case because I have not played the hundreds of games or dozens at least that Jay Shrita has played in set 3. I haven't, I'm not a Masters level player yet. So, my opinion on this specific instance is only worth so much. So I want to kind of remove it from that. The validity, like whether that's true or not, is kind of irrelevant to the point I'm about to make. And also Mort said that GP is getting nerfed anyway, so I don't really know what like.
So and I think part of that that's frustrating is, oh, he's getting nerfed. Why not just do it now? Right? If it's, these people are complaining and it's too powerful, why not just do it in a B patch?
I mean, yes, but also like if we're, I don't know why you wouldn't just do it in a B patch, but I would give some sort of, there might be some sort of reason that they don't do, like they're trying to not do B patches, like only in emergency situations. And I think that's sort of the great, and I'm basing a lot of this on having watched 15 of the 24 hours of Mort's stream on Sunday.
He responds to that. He says it takes away from the cycle of learning, right? That if you B patch GP, then the potential feeling of discovering what works against it is just not going to be available ever. Right. It'll be, this is good, play this. Oh, now it's patched, now play this. Right. And a lot of other games I think have gotten into a pretty unhealthy space by doing that.
Yes. Yes.
And I don't want TFT to do that, except like the last time this happened was Kassassidon. Right. And I remember being a little peeved off when it was just kind of like, just use Zephyr. Right. Like, and then I was like, no. Right? Like, that doesn't just work like that. You know what I mean? And I think that, like, and I'm like, of course, totally over that. But I think, like, that was a very similar feeling to what I think some of these top-level pros are feeling. We know, right? Like, we're good enough at the game to understand that this is overpowered. And it's making our particular game sets unhealthy because it's moving, in their opinion, the game into more RNG dependent, right? Because it's whoever gets these units as opposed to these classes and origins, right? Which is what the game should be about, right? It should never be a race to a GP. But do you think that's where the game is at? Because I don't. For them, it might be, but where I'm at, I'm not seeing any of that.
Well, for where I'm at, it's definitely not like that. But again, like I think top level play is always going to be different, and there's going to be some sort of meta that develops anyway. But what I would say, and what I think is sort of at the core, I don't want to speak for Mort necessarily, but what my understanding of what Mort's point is that, hey, GP strong. I give you that. Rebels comp strong, yes. However, the pattern that Mort put out is absolutely the case. It's the case in almost all games, right? I mean, think about goats in Overwatch. Goats. How long? I know you just threw up a little bit in your mouth.
I casted goats for a year and a half. Okay, yes. I don't need to remember it. But I lived through literally all of it.
Yes, but here's the question: how long were the goats champions available to play in that capacity before goats got discovered? It was a while. It wasn't an instant thing.
That is oversimplifying it. There were some changes. It was mostly the shield changes for Zenyatta that pushed it. But anyway,
there were some changes, yes, but
some balance changes that kind of kicked it over the edge. It was like good, and then armor and shields got there was a thing there, and then it just became, if you didn't play this, you lost.
Right. And I mean, but and even to keep going, I don't want to go too much into Overwatch because there's some people that are going to be like, why are you talking about farm animals right now? But even at the tail end of goats being played, there were teams that developed comps that did well against goats, like that played well against goats before it got nerfed.
Sombra, again, they did nerf Diva heavily, and
yes,
all this other stuff, and balance was definitely a thing. And at the tail end, they were really trying to get rid of goats, so much so that they changed how competitive play worked.
Yes,
and went to 2-2-2. Right? They literally couldn't do it, and so I think like the bigger story of how goats came was more of on the development side is why you don't necessarily add or subtract things in the game just because they're strong, right? Dive was very, very strong at the time. And for those TFT fans who don't know what dive is, it's kind of just like go at them. It's a surgical type of situation. Everyone kind of jumps on top of you. You take someone out and then you get rid of the rest of the team, right? Yeah. I think it's a pretty simple concept. You dive into them, right? But and then a character got released called Brigitte. Right. And Brigitte was a direct counter to everyone who was good at that time. Genji, Tracer, and was obviously put into the game to try to combat dive. But what they did was they overtooled her kit so much that I think she got nerfed 10 times in a row or something like that, like something nuts. They changed her kit. They reworked her once, but because they added this character in response to something else, everything else got balanced weirdly. Right. And then after goats, we got, in my opinion, an even worse meta in the first initial 2-2-2 with these bunker comps. And so and what was bunker there for? It was, well, some direct counters to trying to get rid of, Brig in the meta and then get rid of all these other things. And I don't want TFT to be reactionary development like I think Overwatch was, right? It was so reactionary that the game is in an unhealthy place right now, right? There are characters who literally haven't seen competitive play in years, right? So, and well, League has 100-something other characters, Overwatch doesn't. And with 30-something characters, right, reacting to development like that will cause inherent issues. And I know that's what Mort is definitely trying to make sure doesn't happen. If he just changes everything in response to something else, then all of a sudden, a month down the line, like shit gets broken. Right. And it's going to be way worse than it ever was before, because we actually all started missing goats after this bunker cop thing happened, right? So like things can get crazy, but it's very important for Mort to put his foot down, which I think he did, and say, this is the development team's game. We take your input. We know that you're good, but this is also, we have all the data. Right. You don't have the worldwide data when it comes to this. And they have numbers. And when you have numbers and you don't, I'm usually going to fall on the side of the person with the receipts, Right.
I mean, this goes back to another conversation that we talked about on, I don't remember what episode number it was, but it's like the incentives to play and like why we think that the esports side of it is very important, because right now, yes, there is an incentive in the sense that a lot of these players are very driven to hit the top ranks of ladder and want to hit the top ranks of ladder. Jay Shrita is obviously one of those players and is very passionate about that. But here's the thing: let's imagine a world where we had a TFT season, right? Like, let's just say set 3 as it is right now was a season for 3 months or something, and there were tournaments. There was prizes and some sort of incentive structure for winning that season, whether it's a tournament or ladder or whatever. And in that season, they say at the front of the season, hey, this is the set. Do with it what you will. You either win or you lose. There's no changes to it. There's going to be no balance. Do we see a lot of these players? Like, is it possible that the fact that Mort does talk so openly about it and is so receptive and is so close to it, that the players, instead of being like, well, I got to work with what I'm given, right, and try to figure out a way to beat it, they instead are going to, hey, even if it's not like a nefarious thing that's like, oh, well, I don't want to do the work, I'm just going to complain to the developer. It's not even that mindset. It's I know I can talk to the developer, and I am making, and like Jay Shrita, for what it's worth, does provide a lot of examples, and he gives spreadsheets a lot of times. I know Mort has talked about that, and like give an example, spreadsheets, all that stuff. Like the data is that, like the data that he has access to is given, and it's not even Jay Shrita saying, "Oh, well, I don't want to figure it out. I see all these things happening. This is why I'm right. Change this." I think part of that, like, those two mindsets are almost this. The mindset is different, but the result is the same. Of I'm going to be like, oh, I have data to show you that Gangplank is broken, that Rebels is broken, because every top player is playing those 8 out of 10 games, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is that like that may be true, but it's not like the top players don't need to innovate at all. They don't need to change. They don't need to adapt. They're not like if it's broken, you're just going to keep playing it until it stops being broken, right?
Well, and I think what you really speak on is the difference between a competitive atmosphere and a ladder atmosphere, which
Yes.
in every single game is evident, right? League of Legends, there are some characters that are so great to climb with that suck in competitive,
Yep.
right? Like you can, and so I think what you really are speaking to more than anything else, and I think this is where Mort doesn't like quite get to in his response, is there hasn't been any way for them to show invention and innovation because there hasn't been those tournaments, right?
Right.
To show what these counters can be because they're seeing ladder lobbies every single time, right? So
Right.
yeah, like you can innovate, but you're going to be more incentivized to innovate if there's a tournament this Saturday and you know everyone's running GP, so you're going to be coming into this tournament and preparing for ladder totally differently, right?
Right.
And it's totally cool for the ladder environment and the competitive environment to be completely different. It happens in Hearthstone all the time, right? It happens in most games at some point where certain decks just work better on the ladder than they do in a competitive space. It just happens.
So I will put up a little bit of a point of contention, a little bit there, because I personally don't think that it is cool that the ladder and competitive are necessarily super divergent. I have a personal opinion that those two things should be as close as possible. It's just that there are a lot of games that are successful where those two things are different. I think that they should be very close, but that's a personal thing more than a necessity.
I personally don't think they should mirror each other, right? Because it's up to them to be those inventors, right? And those differences are kind of what shows the path that they have taken into their decision making. And that's what I think is most exciting about competitive play is identifying what those differences are and how they got there.
Well,
but
I think we're on the same.
If it doesn't represent what you're doing at home too, there's a thing there. But I think like the grander scale of thing, there isn't a way for these players to go into a high level tournament and show us what these counters are or experience within that top 16 lobby, right?
Right.
Or those two lobbies that are running together and go for it, because you can try it on ladder if you force a comp, and if there's someone else running GP, you could kind of see how it works, but it's too. I think it's too random to effectively innovate like these pro players really, really want to. And I think competitive is how they get there and how they stop feeling so angry about these comps, because it's not just Jay Shrita that I've seen, right? I've seen Faye talk about it on Twitter. It's a lot of players that are starting to get really frustrated after, set 3 gets released, everyone's super fun, and then everyone kind of starts actually playing with these characters and are like, oh wow, I have some issues now. And they're starting to talk about it because they still don't have a way to show off all the work that they've been putting on, right? Yes, we'll have competitive soon, but if you want these players to innovate, you got to give them a reason why other than don't be bored in ladder, right? Or just play something different in ladder, which is, I think, what Jay Shrita kind of feels like more kind of boiled it down to.
Yeah.
Right? It's just don't play that, right? You need to innovate. It's up to you to push the meta in a way to change that. But these players don't have to, because they don't have to innovate, because they could just grab GP and do their thing because it's ladder, and that's how you recreate those results consistently. It's not as easy as I think as he says.
But on the flip side, it's like it is your responsibility as a player to be good at the game, right? Or to do the best thing to put you in the best position. It's like right now it's like, yes, you can grab GP, and then the argument from the player side is, well, if I don't get that, then I lose. It's like, well, is that actually true? Have you tried like specific counters to it? And I know Jay Shrita's, we're boiling down Jay Shrita's argument a little bit, probably too much, because he's also talking about Nikos and other things like that, other champion, like early 2-star, early game gold and 2 stars. I don't want to get into the specifics of that, but it's like, if we're looking at, there's OP comp. I'm just going to use Rebels as an example. Rebels are OP, right? You have to play Rebels to get top 4 right now. But have you played Six Cybernetics? Have you played 50 games of Six Cybernetics and saw those results? Have you played 50 games of Star Guardians? Have you played 50 and like
So I know exactly where you're going with that, and if I'm a pro player, I shouldn't have to, because that would require me to go into like normal games, right? Which a lot of these guys consider a waste of time, right? They because they don't want to try to learn I want to play 50 games of this, right? But I'm going to be potentially losing, LP. I think there's a little bit more nuance there than have you tried this?
I think that we're coming from two different places in a competitive spot then, because like yes, playing normal games it would be less, but like playing in-houses would be like play testing, scrims, all that sort of stuff would be the type of thing that I would say to do, right? Like playing these lobbies with high level players, and if it's not right, like, and I get like there's a balance where like, oh well, people don't want to watch my stream if I'm playing if I'm not playing ranked. It's like I don't think that Riot I mean, there's a lot of factors there. It's like we need to make ranked the bed of top competitive play, and also the place that people can innovate, and also like it needs to be entertaining for stream, and like part of that is on Riot, I guess, in general to do, and that's just a tough thing. I mean, this kind of all boils into my like original premise that like ladders in general suck, and that it's like ladder is inherently different than competitive play, and I think that those two things should be similar, and I think the way to do that is to like rethink how ladders are done. I don't think that's what's going to happen, but like if instead of there being like the traditional ladder play that we see now, if it's instead like you play a mini tournament or something and you get seeded and you get points for winning the tournaments, like you play an 8-game league or something and you get points, ladder points for winning those. I don't know. Just a thought.
Well, I think like something else that we should definitely talk about if we're talking about this, and like kind of continuing that whole incentive approach, is that like if there was prize money attached to these kind of like conversations, right? Say like TFT Masters,
Mhm.
right, was over the last month, and GP comp won both times, right? Then G Street that would have like a lot more room to
Yes.
stand on,
Yeah.
right? Because this is money now, right? Like it's your
Right.
livelihood, and you're just giving this person who happens to get this person like a better chance at paying rent, right? Like that is a little dramatic, but I think for these
Yeah.
competitive players, it does kind of boil down to that sometimes. And I think that is just like one of the shortcomings that is just tough to kind of move around, right? Like how
Yeah.
do you avoid that?
I mean, I think pulling top players ladder data is one thing, but like, I mean, for what it's worth, we had like the only tournaments that are being run at all are Giant Slayer events. Like there are some other like opens that aren't really casted. There's a few things here and there, but
Yeah,
like
a lot of people wanting to get into the space, no one
right,
actually doing. Yeah,
right. It's
just
really just Giant Slayer, and like we're gonna have whatever TFT comes out with, but like the first Giant Slayer event that Sphinx got second with for set 3, like I don't think, if I recall correctly, Sphinx did not jam Rebels every time, and the first place person didn't jam Rebels every time. They maybe played it 1 or possibly 2 out of the 4 games, but I don't even know that that's the case, because again, the tournament meta changes when it's like, oh well, someone went Rebels, or like everyone is just cutting the Rebels. All of a sudden, it's not that good, right? Or like the GP is getting countered by GP might be OP right now. He might be too OP, something like that. But
yeah.
I think it boils down to, again, there needs to be, I think, if the option is like you innovate, if you can innovate and beat the top, if the reward for beating the top comp is I get ahead of the people who are just jamming the top comp, and getting ahead gives you some sort of prize, whether it's money or an invite to an invitational or something for the competitive, I think the conversation shifts a little bit, because I think it's less like, oh, well, you guys need to change the game, and more like, I need to figure out the answer to this.
Yeah, totally. 100%.
Yep.
Like, I think you nailed it, right? Like, there's not as much incentive to figure out what that answer is, right? And so, yeah, they need to innovate, but at the same time, the way that the game is now, I think you kind of are then asking 6 to 8 different players to kind of decide what's good, right? And is that even innovation at that at that point? And I think what we really need to kind of like think about is how much innovation is even possible within these statistics and within these units, right? Because if we're going with Jay Street and saying it's the unit that is so strong, right? What does GP and the rest of who we sit like Nico take away in terms of viability, right? Because then you take away synergies in that way, or these characters will just never live. So like GP is going to have an easy time against really squishy characters, right? So that inherently makes all mages worse.
Right.
But is there something you can innovate with your sorcerers and make that work? Maybe. How much does that Gangplank actually stymie innovation because of where he is as a character? And that's the other side that I think some of these pro players want to be seen too, is like, maybe they are trying to innovate, right? And maybe not, but every time this conversation happens, because this isn't the first time we've talked about this. This is
probably the second or third time
because of Cassassin. Right? We talk about the Cassassin comp, and when we casted, one of those Giant Slayer TVs, I think the Cassassin comp only got top 4 once.
Right.
So it's very different when you're seeing the same thing over and over on ladder. It gets really frustrating, and then be told you have to deal with it for another week. That gets really frustrating. We're all stuck at home, right? So some of us have a lot of time to play, right? And the last thing that you want is that same kind of thing happening over and over. You're already not going outside, right? And I think this is all kind of just with everything going on in the world and the opportunity for esports to kind of come out of this better than it was going in. There's opportunities here that these pros just feel like they're not being rewarded. They're being told that their opinions are hyperbolic, which they are, right? But they've also given so much for this game that they don't feel like they've gotten a lot back. And I think that's where most of this disconnect really comes from, is that lack of competitive. The longer we wait, the more these things are going to happen. And in an unhealthy way, because I think meta discussion in healthy ways is great and required. But this is unhealthy, in my opinion. And I want to move away from what we're talking. Like, I want to have less of these conversations and more about decisions that have been made, and kind of like leave the philosophy and trust to the devs, leave the innovation and the play to the players, and everything else is for us to consume. But in the end, I want to move away from kind of calling people immature, and just because you say you're not flaming doesn't mean you're not flaming. Right? It's like when someone's like, I don't mean to be an asshole, but and it's like, no, that doesn't excuse you being an asshole, right? You're still being an asshole. And I think the conversation could have just been better, but we're all stuck at home and stressed out, and there's I'm going to be given a little leeway both sides for that one. So
one last thing I will say, and I don't remember if we said this on the cast or if it was before the cast when we were talking, but Mort, the Giant Slayer Set 2 farewell event that Mort and I casted, there's a player, and I don't remember who it is, so I'm going to be vague. There's a player who essentially, like, at the end of Set 2, like showed a bunch of things that like he had been doing that had been very successful that people just weren't doing. Or maybe it was the end of Set 1, I don't remember. And like at the end of Set 1, everyone was running Brawler Jinx, and he was like, no, I was actually running this comp that was actually, and I had like a really big win rate with it, but he like wasn't a streamer, wasn't like, or at least wasn't a big streamer, and like wasn't in the Discord and wasn't like in that community. Because like right now, a lot of, if not all of the top like Masters players, a lot of them are in either that lobby to Discord or like in a Discord in communities talking to each other, streaming to lots of people. So like it's all open for them, right? And that is actually kind of uncommon for a competitive scene, but when there's like actual stakes being played for, right? Like we might start seeing these top players that have these great strategies or these broken strategies instead of like instead of voicing that on the internet about like, oh, this strategy's broken and it needs to be fixed. You probably just keep it to yourself and win with it.
Man, that happens in FPS games so
It happens
often,
in every
right?
game.
Yeah, where you just like hold on to a strategy
Yeah.
just because you know you're the only one
Competitive
that has it.
advantage. Like,
And then like what that opens up is more cheese options, right? And what audience member doesn't like cheese?
oh,
That
you
one
love
dude
cheese.
who's lactose intolerant, right? But like
Right.
most of us love cheese.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Always. And so
yeah, I think even if there are broken things, I think people like this is what happens in Magic, right? Like you do not well, it takes a lot of brokenness, usually at less competitive levels because people like casual Magic players complain about everything, but like if there's a broken deck or something, like it will take multiple tournaments of someone dominating with it before it gets changed, right? Like before what used to be called Pro Tours and are now called Mythic Championships, like there are separate teams of players who like before the event will be at someone's house and be testing like for a week beforehand, and those tournaments are super the highest level of play, or some of the highest level of play. They're invite only pro players, and like those tournaments have a ton of innovation. There's usually like 2 or 3 weeks beforehand, because these are planned around when a set gets released. So there's usually 2 or 3 weeks beforehand when the set is out, but the new tournament has been played. There's usually a tournament or two before that, and we see lower level players playing those, and you see a meta sort of develop, and then these what used to be called Pro Tours happen, and it's like a bombshell gets dropped. They figure out a new, like, it's like the pro players who put their minds to it and just ground it out for weeks beforehand and kept their strategies to themselves because they're trying to win $100,000 tournament. Like, yeah, this was actually like, this actually breaks the format, and you guys just didn't figure it out because you're not as good as us. Like that, I mean, they don't say that, but that is the case. That is the case when you get the best players in the world working together to build the deck. Now, it's definitely different for TFT. I'm not saying it's a 1-to-1, but I think when there are stakes like that, we're going to see the discussion be changed a little bit. I think we're going to be seeing this and be like, okay, we need to change. Like Riot's going to be like, oh God, we need to change that because Jay Shrita is actually just winning every time because they know. But I don't want to go. There's even more we could go into with that, but I think that the discussion will change a bit when there's stakes on it, because I think you're going to be less incentivized to want it to be changed as a competitive player, and more incentivized to want to be the only person or one of the people who uses that strategy the best to their advantage.
Yeah, I mean, you're putting a lot of. I think the onus is on both of them. Is the answer, right? It's like we all got to be working as
right.
Yeah,
and everybody's wrong.
We're all in this together,
Yes.
and I think both people brought up good points, and I think both people are really stressed. Right? Like,
Yes.
could you imagine? I know Mort's got kids. Could you imagine being quarantined with children right now? Right?
No,
like that's got to be tough.
Not. I would rather not imagine.
I know. I don't even. I'm stressed out thinking about it. Mort is living it. So,
Yeah.
like, and he's still doing streams and he's still talking to the community,
Yep.
right? And you got to give him props for that. Just overall, I think communication just broke down there in the middle, and eventually, I think they were talking about more philosophical things and the actual points at hand.
Yeah.
Of like balance and innovation. Versus it turned into like, well, it's my fault. No, it's you in the end. But I think the onus is on everybody. It's on us as casual viewers. It's on us as competitive, viewers as well, to want the best of the game. And complaining is a way to show that you want something more, but you also have to balance it out with something else. And when you're only coming in with a negative, I'm not going to listen to you after a certain point, even if you're right. So that's just
True.
human nature, and I
True.
think that's kind of Jay Shrita's issue there.
Yeah.
And some other streamers just in general. And
Yeah.
again, they're all young. They don't have, we're boomers.
True.
Right?
We are
We've
esports
gone
boomers.
through a lot of these kinds of arguments before, and
Mhm.
it's time for them to kind of learn and do the same thing as they grow up and become professionals themselves.
Yep. Okay, Boop. As we wrap up the show here, there's one thing important that we haven't talked about yet, and that is where these new little legends stack up on the taste tier list.
Ice cream squink, number 1.
That I think that is overwhelmingly correct.
It's got to be the ice cream
Now,
squink, then followed by watermelon squink.
Yes. Okay. Those no one is debating that. Or if you are, shut up because you're wrong.
Wrong.
Let's go with just base versions of each of the 3 new ones on taste. Where are you putting these?
I think I'm still going to put squink up high. There's
calamari.
Yeah, I know. Well, there's like this like squid jerky that's always at my Asian market.
Oh.
My mom always got me, and it's really sweet. I forget. It comes in
Really?
like a white bag. Yeah, it's like Korean squid jerky. Oh, it is good, man.
I gotta try that.
No, it's like really sweet, and when you chew it, it becomes like juicy. Oh, it's so good. So definitely the squink, and then the whale would probably be second, and then
whale seems like it'd be pretty blubbery, really fatty.
Yeah, I mean, I think you would use whale in a soup, maybe a river Sprite base.
Ooh.
Put in a little bit of the whaler, you put in a little bit of the blubber, have it like break down into a stock, and then maybe add your squink in after that, or even fua or paddle bar.
Ooh, yes. Now we're getting some ramen in here.
Yeah, who said we needed to only eat one at a time?
That's true. That is true. Ooh,
because if we do institute that, then the tier list just doesn't exist.
That's true. But we could have like create
the best little
Legends meal. Dish. The meal.
It's like when you're in Pokemon and you're making curry.
Yes.
But instead of berries, you use little legends.
You're using little legends. What is the best meal that you can use? It's like Iron Chef and
or Chopped. Yeah. What is the best meal you can make with a river Sprite?
Oh man, my creative juices are flowing now thinking about that. But yeah, the Abyssea, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Please consult a doctor if Abyssea is caused.
Well, okay. But the thing that the Abyssea cuts looks like a truffle.
It does. It looks like a really tasty, like everlasting gobstopper.
Yeah. So I think you got to give a little bit. So you got to give credit where credit's due, right?
Yeah.
I think this is going to be better than. I would put the Abyssea still like D tier, but I don't think it's
definitely
inedible.
D tier. I think it seems a little bit too like human like. It's just like naturally.
Yeah, it also seems really grumpy, and grumpy meat doesn't taste as good.
But he does seem like honorable, and I think honorable meat tastes even better.
Yeah, I think S tier meat. Honorable. S tier is honorable. A tier is happy, and then F tier is sad.
F tier is sad.
I didn't even think about honorable.
You gotta think of all the emotions when what your meat is going to taste like. No, Boop when you're thinking of the emotions, does it only take into effect the emotion that the animal felt when it died, or is it just like the mean of its entire life?
Yeah, I think it's the mean, not the median, right? The average of
so like
all of
Eeyore would taste like garbage, even if he was very, very happy.
Yeah, even though some episodes, even though some episodes he had friends and helped out, most of Eeyore's life was sad and depressed, and so
therefore causes meat to be chewy and inedible.
And depressed. Yeah, exactly. And so an honorable cow would be very tender. It would be very tasty, I'm sure.
And on that note, folks, there you have it. You've got the insights. We're spilling all the deets on the flavor tier.
Competitive TFT and incentives. And which little legends taste the best in the same podcast. I don't know where you can get that.
You certainly can't get it anywhere else. I will guarantee you that. Except for here on the Little Legends podcast. But that is going to be it for us for today. Let us know. What do you guys think? I'm still like, I'm still like, I think overall set 3 for me, big thumbs up still. Has not felt dull to me at all yet. The variety, at least at gold level, has been quite nice. You do still see Rebels. I'm not seeing them like. It might just be that these players don't
I'm seeing a
optimize
lot
them
of the
well,
Star
but
Guardian comps doing a really good job right now, so we'll
yeah.
see how it goes.
Yeah, I had a really good game with Star Guardians as well, but we will definitely see how it goes. But that is going to be it, everyone. Boop, where can people find you on the internet when they're not right here?
At Booposaurus Rex. I am less than 10 followers away from 1,000.
Ooh.
And 2 things will be happening at 1K.
Ooh.
Some type of event that we're still spitballing, and I swear will exist. As Blev said, if I want to take on all of it, we can totally do it. So I guess that's going to be a thing. And then I totally and then I'll be starting my stream up. Hopefully April 1st is going to be where it's going to be. And I've saved a lot of my ranked games for a climbing stream. So
nice.
You'll be able to come on that journey with me. So please hang out. And nice. I'll definitely be doing some type of giveaway at 1K. I have an extra concept book from League of Legends. And so that's probably going to be when we finally give that away.
Nice.
Where can we find you?
Well, you can find me on the Discord at discord.me/Little Legends Podcast. You can, my Twitter's at @the_Blevins, but no one cares about that. Just go to the Discord. That's where I am certainly the most active and where you can find all the links and everything that's going on in the Little Legends Podcast community. But until then, guys and gals, that is going to be it. Thank you, everyone, for watching and listening. Let us know what you think about everything that we talked about here, and we will see you guys at game night on Friday, and if not, we'll see you next week on episode number 34.